This is Brian with Slam, and on this week's Slam Present, I speak with Lucy Hammett, who's an illustrator, painter, a game designer, who's been a creator her whole life, and we're here today to talk about creativity and how that has crossed mediums and even state lines. So, Lucy, you are an illustrator, you're a painter, you're a game designer. Do you have one designation that you like the best?
Well, now I love painting. That's really what I do. The games are still in circulation and selling well, especially with stay-at-home moms now. But I've been painting full-time serious for about 6 or 7 years. And that's what I do now, and that's what I'd like the best.
So you started painting full-time right before you moved full-time to Bozeman?
Yes, And then I took some workshops and traveled with painting, and I have painter friends, and just started painting, and the workshops really helped get focused on the basics of art, and there's so many levels to painting, starting out. And I'm strictly an oil painter. I mean, I have done pastels and a few watercolors, and when I illustrated a book and the games, I used gouache, but now it's just oil paints on canvas, on linen, pretty traditional oil painting.
What's gouache?
Gouache is a rather opaque watercolor. So it's water soluble, but it's more opaque than watercolor. So you get more opacity to the color.
And why did you choose that to do a book?
Because you get more depth to it, and it's on paper. Oil paints need to go on canvas, really. I mean, they can go on leather and other surfaces, but when you're working on paper and illustrating, you need really a gouache or a watercolor, or an acrylic that's water-based.
And you said right when you started painting, you started taking all these workshops. What inspired you to go to your first workshop?
Well, that's a good question. I guess a friend kind of talked me into it. It was in Scottsdale. The Scottsdale Artist School is such a fine school. And the teacher, Brian Mark Taylor, is so good and so well known. And so it was the teacher and where we went, and then I had a good opportunity to take a class in Maine with Ray Roberts, who's also very well known. So it's the attraction of a good teacher, if you can get those.
Good mentor could go a long way. Is there one lesson from either one of those initial workshops that really stood out?
Well, it's interesting. They're kind of all, you learn the same things, but they take on different meaning the longer you, like light and shadow, that's what, and values, and you do that all the time. But the more you get into it, the more you really work light and shadow. It continues to have more meaning. The basics are always there. But the more you get into it, the better you can work these basic rules of value, composition, color saturation, shapes. It's all values, the darks and the lights.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like the best in life, or the best advice in life are just platitudes. These things you hear all the time, but sometimes they sink in and you realize why great advice is so cliche, because great advice is simple. And it's the same thing with art.
Right.
It's like the best lessons are there, it's just as you spend time in them, you might understand them deeper and have a whole new meaning.
They get deeper.
But the principles themselves aren't that complicated.
No, it's very interesting that way, because it's the same rules, but you can apply it so different.
If there's an artist who's hesitating to go to a workshop, what would you say to them?
If what?
There was an artist who was hesitating whether they thought the workshop would be beneficial.
You have nothing to lose. Why not go?
Yeah. It's a great advice, or another great piece of life advice. Just try.
Yeah.
You have to lose.
Yeah, you nothing to lose. You always learn something,
And you came here from Texas.
Yes.
Have you noticed a difference in your creative flow, creative energy, or just like the paintings that you create since you moved to such a different landscape?
A million times over. I mean, Montana is a very special place, and I've been coming here for 20 years, and I am excited. I see something beautiful every day that almost brings tears to my eyes. I mean, there is such beauty here. It is so exciting to be in Montana and see the landscape every day. There's something beautiful every day. That's like these pelicans. What inspired me to paint these, I go on a road, Cottonwood, and pass a pond. Not daily, but often. And I recognize all the birds. There are ducks sometimes, and they're the geese, and there are just a few different birds every time, but I always look for them and want to identify them. And one day I drive by, and there are these pelicans, these white pelicans, just swirling around, and they were just beautiful. And so I said, that's it, I'm painting white pelicans. So, and that's not going to be my last white pelican painting. And you can, of course, see them on the Madison, the white pelicans.
Yeah, I've come pretty close when I was paddleboarding. Does this painting have a name?
It does. It's Feathers Forever.
And was this plein air, or do you take a picture and then you...
That was a picture. I do a lot of plein air painting, but I finish it in the studio like everybody really does. I can finish a painting outdoors, but typically...
you get the main essence, and then you come back to the studio and you add the finishing.
And just see the different lights you might want to add. But plein air, it is so different. But this was strictly, I had a reference. You use a reference. And this painting with the red-winged blackbirds, I totally made that up. Because, they're all different.
So where do you think your inspiration comes from? Is it striking more in nature, or is it something that's cerebral that just comes to you and that you want to paint this?
Well, I think it always comes from nature, but it's kind of I've always been drawn to birds, but and I'm not a narrative painter, I'm not telling a story, I'm just saying this is really pretty. But the inspiration, I see something, I want to paint that.
It just comes to you.
Uh-huh.
It's a feeling, it just sparks. And so you saw it and you went out and you took a picture, or did you take this picture and you were looking through and then you saw it and was like, this is what I want to paint?
I took several pictures, and then I got other pictures and then sorted them around and figured out what and they do group like that. And the design was also interesting to me, and the simplicity of the colors. The colors are pretty.
The blues, the white, and the yellows.
And of course, white's never white. But it's going to be, I keep challenging myself to try and paint a little mystery, really want to be original. I can go paint a sandhill crane and illustrate it, but that's not a painting. A painting kind of needs to be a little mysterious, a little interesting, a personal touch. I don't really think I have a voice quite yet, but I'm hoping, to get where you can identify that it might be one of my paintings.
You say that you're not a narrative painter and that you're not painting a story, but you want to paint mystery. Isn't there an inherent story in that mystery that you're trying to capture?
Well, yes, I think that's a very good observation. If you, that is a grouping, and there's inevitably some kind of story, like bird on a tree or something, but
You just like capturing the moment, and you allow your audience to create their own story.
I think so, yes.
You're not trying to guide them in any direction.
Not really, no. I'm sure there are different kinds of images and paintings where you do, but if you just do a simple little still life, it's just a beautiful thing to look at, like those fish or flowers. a vase full of flowers, you're just expressing the fact that you think they're lovely.
What do you think a painting does to a picture like this as compared to just a portrait? That somebody could have a picture of pelicans versus a painting. Do you think that painting brings a different life to the story?
Very much so. And you can tell what's an illustration and what is a painting.
Because of the passion of the artist?
They're just, I mean, an illustration is, this is what it is. But that is, that's a painting.
So you have more depth.
It has more content and composition. An illustration really doesn't have a composition. It's just of a frog, an illustration of a deer or bird. But if it's doing something and has a background and a foreground, then it's a painting.
How much of your background as an illustrator helped influence you as a painter?
Probably a lot with subject matter. And the first game I did was Texas Bingo, so that really wasn't nature. But when I got into the bingo games, bug bingo, nature bingo, bird bingo, reptile bingo, all the nature, shells I collect. And then this book that I illustrated and wrote, that has fish and birds and shells and flowers from the tropics. And so, those are illustrations.
What inspired you to create a book? Which is a great way to
Well, I was
capture all the
living in the
things you enjoy.
Caribbean, and I would see these shells and these birds and these gorgeous plants, and I couldn't find a book. It was a long time ago. So there wasn't a book to tell me what they were, so I said, I'll go do one. So I did.
Did you do the book before you started bingo, or were you doing bingo before?
No, I did the book way before.
So I imagine a book like this took a lot of patience, because it was 222 color illustrations, huh? So that was probably a long-term project. How long did that take you?
2.5 years, something like that.
Do you think that helped instill patience in you that helped you as a painter years later?
Absolutely. My deal, it's so easy to get these ideas and not finish them, but you have to finish them. To have an unfinished book, not a good idea. To have and Texas Bingo, my very first game, that was hard. I illustrated everything and had to find a printer and box maker and box wraps and shipping but once you finish it, it helps to the process. If you can complete it and you've seen completed work, it makes you stick with it.
Yeah, and also you must appreciate painting as a little bit simpler. You paint it on the canvas and now you just frame it. You don't need to do all the other manufacturing elements of the game. So you're living in the Caribbean, you made this book, and then how did that translate to inspire you to start creating these bingo games?
Well, I was in Texas and I always was drawn to art, nature. I guess in business, I like business. My father was a businessman. So in Texas, once again, there was really not anything that was like a book about, and I had a child at that time. Actually, I had 2 children. My daughter was 2 and my son was 5 when I came out with Texas Bingo. I have the cutest picture. But so I just illustrated all the interesting flora and fauna and history of Texas for a children's picture bingo game.
Did you know, you had that time that you were going to start this, did you have the idea from the beginning that you would sell it as a full-fledged game?
As a what?
As like a full game, or you just kind of started it off as a hobby?
No.
No.
I was going to do Texas Bingo, and it was going to be in a box and be a children's educational picture bingo game.
So you did the first one. How long did that first one take you?
Well, I think from start to finish, gosh, maybe 2 years.
And that was finding the manufacturer, finding the right box, doing all the elements of not just creating the different cards,
Oh,
but
no,
the
there's-
full spectrum of business.
Yes, you have to, we went to trade shows to sell them, and then just the assembly, and then boxes and shipping, and so it's been involved.
So after 2 years of creating the first one, you knew you couldn't just stop at one, right?
Well, yeah, no, right. And I did states. I did Texas, and then I did New Mexico. And these are all illustrated, and they're so pretty. My games aren't illustrated anymore. It's just graphics. But I did New Mexico, California, Colorado, Florida, Louisiana, and then my first game that was not a state was science bingo. And that could go nationwide. It was such a broader subject. And so then from science, nature, United States of America. I did custom games too. I did a custom game for the White House. And then I did a custom game for the Grand Bahama Island. I've been doing it 35 years. So anyway.
So explain for a second. So it's bingo, but the back is pictures.
Well, you have boards. I should have a game out here, but they're picture boards. There are 6 different boards in each game. Then you have a deck of cards, and you hold up a card, and it might be shells. This is nature bingo. And if you have shells on your board, then you mark it, and on the back of that card, it tells you all about shells. So whether it's spiders, rodents, birds, butterflies, feathers, it describes the character on the back.
So it's a great activity for parents and their kids because they're teaching them as they play a fun,
Right.
engaging game. And since the pictures are so beautiful, it sticks even more.
And it's age about 4 to 10. They're just a great a product for that age, about 4 to 10.
How often did you play with your own kids?
Well, we're into the 3rd generation now because my daughter, well, she has 2 young children. They played. My grandson Sawyer, we play it, but my daughter's friends are using these games with their children. That's really fun.
So I know you set out to have a business plan when you created the first one, but did you ever think that 35 years later, your games would be still being played with your grandkids?
Well, I am still a little surprised by it, and I'm not too active in all this, but they're classic. It's just classic educational picture bingo, and and now they're on the website. They sell because of all the homeschooling that's going on right now. The mothers have discovered them, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's funny how it's just like a nice silver lining for you and how just different events you may never have saw could influence your life years down the road.
Right.
And so you actually got named Entrepreneur Magazine Best Game Designer in a Decade.
Well, that was a while back, and there weren't many original games out there. And then when I had so many 10, 15 titles. I have like 30 titles now, but, and we go to the New York Toy Fair, and we won Dr. Toy Award. The games have won, I think, pretty much Parents' Choice Award.
What award meant the most to you?
Parents' Choice. It took a while, but you get that sticker. And then you can put a sticker on the game that says Parents' Choice Award.
That's cool, forever altering the box.
Right, right, so. Anyway.
And you got to do a custom one, you said, for the White House. I bet that was a great honor.
It was, and it sold for a long time. And the White House Historical Association commissioned it, and, well, you learn so much, it was the furnishings, the sculpture and the gardens, all the characters. I have a game somewhere, but when you do these games, you learn so much.
I was just thinking that was going to be my next question, because you're adding a fact on the back of every single board.
Right.
So
Right.
it's amazing what knowledge you retain through that process. What has been your favorite subject?
Well, that's a hard question. I don't know. I love my bird bingo, and I love nature bingo too because it's so general and has everything. Um, I don't really have a favorite, but the most unique, they're out of print now, but I did a Montana bingo, I did a Yellowstone bingo, and I did a Lewis and Clark bingo. And I think Lewis and Clark bingo was the most unique game, but we just didn't sell enough, and it's out of print. I have a few copies. And I actually got a blue ribbon from the state fair for Lewis and Clark bingo.
Oh wow.
It was the most precious thing.
Looking back, where does Texas bingo rank in your hierarchy? Is it still because you're first?
Oh yeah, and it's so different from the original one. I wish I had one here. The original one that I illustrated every cactus, every flag, is so different from the one that we have now. But yes, my heart is close to Texas bingo.
Yeah, you'll never forget your first.
Right. So.
And I imagine that whole process of becoming an entrepreneur and making the game and doing all the things has years later now helped you being a professional painter. Because you have this whole background in creating a product and selling the product, so you have experience beyond just being an artist, but also a businesswoman to support your art.
I think that's definitely helped. I don't hesitate to have a show or try and sell a painting or push my work a little bit. And I love to paint for people, you know, a commission. Someone says, I love this scene, and I go, oh, well, let's talk about it. Let's make this happen. I really, some painters don't like commissions. I like them a lot.
Yeah, and you mentioned before that you don't always just take a photo or do plein air, but you may create your own paintings.
Definitely.
So with custom, it's kind of you get to make your own thing, right? Mm-hmm. Or somebody might give you a photo.
Yes, I remember doing a commission for a family that had some property, and a barn was over here and that hill was over there, but he wanted it all in the painting. Well, you couldn't have it from a, you know, one photograph wouldn't do it, so it did have to be kind of a collaboration.
You had to modify it.
Yeah, I had to switch it up a little bit.
And make it uniquely your own.
Uh-huh.
What's one lesson that you could tell for an artist struggling to make that jump into making art more than a hobby and into a business?
I mean, just don't, I mean, want to, for one thing. If you want to, then it's not too hard. It is hard to sell art. I mean, not, but you have to expose yourself and not be afraid to do that, and love, I like my paintings. So if you believe in your work, then you put it out there.
You got to be willing to face rejection.
Oh,
and just expose yourself.
Right. Well, to this day, I mean, now it's. I mean, I paint for myself. I think, you know, I like them, or I wouldn't do them.
Yeah.
But when I sign my painting, I like it.
Yeah, it's your stamp of approval.
Right. That's right. And it's an evolution of a process. Who knows what I'll paint next year, or what any of us will be doing next year.
That is a big question. Right. Do you think like you get stuck, or not get stuck is the wrong word, but each year do you kind of find new things that interest you to paint? And so there's more themes each year.
Yes, I get ideas. I got on a.
You get on a kick.
Yeah, I wanted to paint all the bars in Montana. I mean, not all the bars in Montana, but some of the interesting bars, old gorgeous bars and mirrors and people, and kind of like Lautrec in the days in Paris, you know, but Montana style. I only got one painting done, and then so I started that, and then I never
Oh,
thought
you
I'd
started
paint.
it earlier this year?
Well, no, it was a couple of years ago. I never thought I'd paint a buffalo. I just thought they were kind of commercial and everything. Well, now I've just love my buffalo painting. So you never know.
What changed in you? You think that you just felt like, I'll just try it?
It just appealed to me, and I thought, I want to do a buffalo. I want to do a buffalo in Yellowstone with the fabulous fumaroles and mists and things.
Did you go out to Yellowstone to find a buffalo to paint, or when you were out there, you were just
No.
inspired and it just kind of changed?
Oh, well,
And
we just
suddenly
drive
was
it in the
time.
car, and they're right there, click. And they are exciting.
How often do you go out and hunt for ideas versus like just kind of natural? You don't have anything, or I'm just going to Yellowstone to enjoy it, and an idea sparks versus you're sitting here and you think like, I want to paint a specific thing, so I'm going to go find it.
I never go look for it. It always comes to me.
You just let inspiration come to you.
Right.
What does inspiration look for you? Like, is there a feeling? Is there
I don't know, when I
just
saw those
excitement?
pelicans, that was it.
It's just an excitement.
Oh, that was it, and I'm not finished. I mean, they still excite me like crazy. White pelicans.
So you have different series on different rivers.
Well, it's just mainly where to put them. I mean, it's going to be in the water, of course, but feeding and now I'm kind of fascinated with the Canada geese. I'm trying to do that painting over there where it's really, because there's so many and they're in the field and they stand out, but to show their characteristics is what you really want to do.
What's the hardest part about painting a bird?
Well, just getting the essence of them. I mean, I like I said, I can copy a picture, but if you're integrating them in a painting, you want the essence. What you really feel like when you see a white pelican, and when you see a Canada goose or a little black-capped chickadee, you know, they're cute. They all have characteristics, and you want that feeling, that essence of them.
Do you get that same excitement when you paint a landscape as versus?
Yes,
And the same thing, you're still trying to capture the essence of the land.
right. Like this painting of the crazies over here. It was a plein air paint out of Livingston, and so I went to Clyde Park and just found this spot, and oh my gosh, it was so much fun just to try and get those crazies down on a canvas.
What's a paint out?
Well, you go out and paint
Gotcha.
with people.
Oh, so it's kind of a party, so it's a group, so.
It was a group. It's the Livingston, the Culture Center. Every, I guess summer does. They select like 30 painters, and you have to go out in Park County, and they stamp your canvas so they know that you did it right then and there.
No cheating.
No,
It's
you
not
can't.
like that lady who ran the Boston Marathon but really took a taxi.
Oh.
It's like slipping one underneath. Well, just painting this right here.
All right. No, I mean, you set your easel up or your post-shot box and you're out there and you find your spot and paint it. And you only have 3 days, so.
Do you feed off the energy of the other artists when you're in that group setting? Does it feel different than
I
painting
love to
alone?
paint with my friends and other painters. And I like it a lot.
Yeah, I teach dance and there's such a different feeling. You feel the energy. It's like why it's so much easier to dance on a dance floor that has a bunch of people than dancing alone or even dancing in your house. It's like you just feed off that energy.
I think so, just like conversation.
Yeah.
I don't want to be talking to myself.
No.
I like talking to you.
A creative conversation with the artists around you. Do you take inspiration when you guys are all painting? You kind of see, does it help influence your work at all? Or it's just the support and the energy of those around you?
Well, different friends or different painters, you have different, relationships. But we love to help each other and go, I'm not so sure I'd use that color. That looks great. Oh, I don't know about that. And that is so helpful.
It becomes a collaborative process.
Very much so. And another set of eyes is helpful.
So I think that's like a fun thing to also, a good lesson for other artists. If you're having or struggling right now, then you don't know how to be creative, maybe try and spend some time with a few fellow painters and work in a group.
Absolutely. If you, yes, take a little lesson, go to a group, put that apple on the table and paint a little still life and you'll get into it. I have a few lessons that I give down here. Teaching is very fun, but you set up a still life and start and you're into it.
You teach one-on-one or you teach a class?
Both. But
what have you learned teaching? Has it helped reinforce, or have it kind of opened up new insights being a teacher?
I don't know but it sure is fun to kind of encourage and see evolve. Because once you start a little painting, no matter what it looks like, you like it. You know, you're proud of it.
It has been a tough year for a lot of reasons, and I just kind of mentioned one lesson, but do you have any other lessons that you could impart to artists who might be struggling right now to be creative or have felt that their creative flow has been disrupted?
Just move forward, keep going, just pick up the brush, just do it. And don't be so, if I mess up and it's terrible painting, it didn't really matter to me. Next one will be better. It's a little Pollyanna attitude, but I really feel that way. I'm not worried about it. If it's not good, I'll make it better next time. Don't fret about it.
Don't be stuck on trying to make everything perfect.
Right.
That painting might just help you, inspire you to paint the next painting that you do find to be up to your standard. But it's important that you just keep moving.
Very much so. I do a lot of pet portraits, and I think, oh my gosh, I don't think I'm going to get this. I don't think this is going to work. The client's waiting for it, and I go, this isn't going to work. Well, you just keep going, and with oil paints, I can paint over the whole thing. So, you get there. Eventually you get there.
It's probably tough. You're painting the essence of the bird itself, but in that case, you're painting the essence of a specific dog or cat.
Yeah, that's kind of more like an illustration.
Yeah.
Because, the image that I get, my reference, that's what I'm going to paint.
Yeah.
I don't put too much in, it's not a painting.
Yeah.
But a painting is where I want to go.
Is there any animal that you find hardest to paint?
Any what?
Any animal that you find the hardest to paint?
Well, I don't paint that many animals, really. I mean, I do paint birds a lot. But I don't paint many animals. Except my 2 buffalo paintings that I have now, I'm so happy with. But flowers are another wonderful, they never go out of style.
Do you have a favorite flower you like to paint?
The hollyhock, yes. I have a whole front walkway of hollyhocks in the summertime. And they're incredible.
Is it easier to be creative? I was just thinking that you talked about in the summertime. Is it easier to be creative in the different seasons, winter versus summer?
When it's snowing out there and it's very creative to be cozy inside and paint. When the sun's shining, it's wonderful to be out there and paint. So either way is fine. But I don't get down in the winter and snowing outside and cold. It's wonderful to be inside and paint.
Yeah, there's something nice about a snowy day, especially a snowy weekend day. It's just
exactly.
the world. Yeah, I have no excuses. I'm happy to be home.
Right.
It's a little bit easier just to be here and be creative because this is my space.
Exactly.
And then in the summer, you kind of have the total opposite, but that's a cool way that you get to take advantage of both creative seasons.
Right.
So do you have any shows or any events that are coming up that you want to talk about?
Well, I just had my own little open house this last weekend where some friends and neighbors came by, and I loved setting up my garage with easels and then going out in the driveway. We were all distanced and it was wonderful, and I sold like 8 paintings, and that was terrific. And then at this time, right now, I do have a show up at the Cafe M that's on Kagi. And then earlier in the year, I had a show at Wild Crumb, but I'm not in any galleries, or I just paint here. Some people come to my studio here to see my paintings.
And what's the best way that people could find you?
Well,
Website, social media?
if they just Google Lucy Hammett artist, you can see my paintings. And then and then that's my website, has my collection of paintings. And just Lucy Hammett, I think you can find me, but I have an email.
And then you have a different website for the games, right?
Yes, it's Lucy Hammett Games.
So you've been doing, I guess kind of the last question,
Okay.
you've been doing the games for 35 years, right? Do you still have the same passion for doing the games? Or
No, I forget that I even did them. I go, oh my gosh, I did that. I don't, it's run in Texas, there's a partner, and I make some sales calls, but mainly they're distributors, but I'm into living in Montana and painting and
stay hungry, keep learning, keep
Right.
trying new things. That is a great lesson, a great way to impart too. So it's like, no matter how much success you've had, keep pushing forward, because you always find other things to excite you and bring you joy in life.
I think that's right, and so possible. And I can't wait to see where painting takes me. There's so many good painters that I admire so much, especially here in Montana. And there's so many, look how many painters there are. And they're so different.
Yeah. And we are very excited to see where painting takes you. And we will stay tuned, and we'll see exactly where Lucy goes on her painting adventure. So thank you so much, Lucy, for all your time. We really appreciate you inviting us into your studio and talking about creativity and your journey to get here.
Thank you.
Until
Thank
the
you.
next time, we'll see you later.
Okay.